starts off with Joseph Schumpeter. This Nobel Prize this year is actually a tribute to somebody who wrote this 100 years ago. This is the next book that I give you. This is for those of you. That Camus' book is for everybody. All of you should read that. This for those of you who like mathematics. But the message that Schumpeter is giving is the same message that is coming through in this year's Nobel Prize. And that is that development happens not just when you come across a new thing, but it's essential for development to destroy what exists. That true development happens when you destroy what exists right now. He called it creative destruction. And if you see across the world, what did cell phones do? They destroyed the earlier phone. There is no phone anymore, isn't it? They destroyed the cameras. If it was there, we wouldn't proceed further. We destroyed typewriters. Some of the biggest discoveries of mankind are destroyed. They no longer exist. And it is that in that destruction that creation happens. If you continue with what you have, and some of you will study this on legacies, that those countries, those people who continue to live on legacy, dad is a rich man and you have enormous inheritance. Why should you do anything? Isn't it? Why should you do anything? So let me celebrate my wedding for 1 year and let the whole world watch. That's what I do, because I have inherited so much money. Right? So one of the biggest antidotes to success is inheritance, is a legacy. There is no motivation. That's why very rarely will you have successful children of successful parents. You don't have to do anything. How many grandchildren of successful people do you even know of? How many children do you know? Bill Gates has 3 children. Narayan Murthy's daughter only became famous because she married Rishi Sunak. So this point that Schumpeter makes, that growth happens when you destroy, when you do away with legacy, when you move away from what you have. And that's why one of the things that is often a matter of great concern is, should children take up parents' professions? Would Stuart Binney have been better off playing hockey? Or Rohan Gavaskar? Or, whatever that fellow's name, I don't even remember. Amitabh Bachchan's son? See, I don't even remember his name. Hema Malini's daughters. Vishwanathan Anand's son. Mediocre. When Rajdeep Sardesai decided that he is not going to play cricket, he was already playing for India under 19. Saying, my dad was a very successful fellow, I will not be able to. He became a very successful journalist. As did Farid Zakaria when he did not follow Rafiq Zakaria in politics. So it's a tough decision, because it's very easy to inherit your father's or your mother's dental practice. You don't have to do anything. All those old teeth will come to you. Or a law practice. So think about that. It's a very tough act to follow. Very few people who would have done better than their parents did. And you can really count them on your fingers. Think of this. How many actors do you know who did better than their parents? How many politicians do you know who did better? How many sports people who did better? How many industrialists? Why do industries die? Where is Carnegie? Where is Mr. Ford? Why is Alfred Nobel's grandson, the only thing that he does is give Nobel Prizes? What happened to all those great painters and poets? How many poets you can think of whose children also, they all took up poetry. But, Nusrat Badar, where is he? Okay. So, the important thing that Schumpeter is saying is, one, that it is important for you to destroy, that it's important for renewal, that it's all about how people and societies reorganize themselves, not just follow that path. And how do you redefine the boundaries of progress? 40 years ago, when we were growing up, we had a perfectly wonderful optical fiber network for basic telephony. There was no need for anything else. You could go pick up the phone, dial a number, speak to anyone you wanted to across the world. Why did we want to destroy that and create this wireless network? Because you said no, I want something better. This is great, but I want something better. You wanted to fight limited resources. You basically wanted to change things. When Newton was asked, sir, of what use is calculus? When he first presented calculus, it looked like a stupid thing. He said, of what use is a newborn baby? Isn't it? What use is a newborn baby? Ugly, crying, then it grows into something. So that's the running theme, that growth and the growth mindset, while on one hand seeks a path to climb, on the other decides what it will destroy. Okay. So that's what Schumpeter is saying. Every innovation replaces what came before. Every new enterprise stands on the remains of the old. That this is not a defect of the modern world, but it is its pulse. Now, so just that first line, that the modern economy, the modern person, the modern community is one that survives through its own undoing. If you continue to dwell in what existed, then you will not grow. थे तो आबा वो तुम्हारे ही, तुम क्या हो? हाथ पर हाथ धरे मुंतज़िर फरदा. So look at the world's greatest countries. I want you to think of something that I am going to describe and ask you. Which is the world's richest country today? Yes. Any idea of the size of its GDP? $30 trillion. Right? Yeah. Upwards of $30 trillion. Which was the richest country in the world 150 years ago? UK. Great Britain. Right? 1857. The Queen ruling over a Commonwealth, 100 countries. Right? the British pound shilling being the most powerful currency in the world. 400 years ago, 1625.
India.
India.
22%.
The East India Company coming and presenting its proposal to Emperor Jahangir saying, please allow us to work in the world's largest economy. 800 years ago. Yeah, but Turks were number 3, 4. Ottoman, China. Remember the 13th century AD. You know, Hyun Sang, Fahian, Marco Polo, Silk Route. And that's why someone said, you know, go to China, that's where you will get knowledge. You know, very difficult to go there. And that's why that hadith, even if you have to go to China, learning is important, even if it is the most difficult country to get. Just, you know, China was always closed. And that's the significance of that hadith. But look at this: China, India, UK, or Great Britain, US. What about before China? Let me ask you the tougher question. 2,300 years ago, or 300 years before Christ.
It is IBC, and Persian BC to Mesopotamian civilization.
Okay. So Iraq or Mesopotamia is much earlier. By this time it is dead. Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Mesopotamia, these are all that, Huangho, they're much earlier. I am talking of a few years before Christ. Persia comes later. Egypt is the right continent, but the wrong country. Now you have a, it's not Nigeria, good attempt, but not Nigeria. Greek is the wrong continent. So you've got the continent right, I'm asking for the country. You know, as desperate answers go, good answer, but not right. No, not Nigeria. Huh? No. South America तो आज तक भी not bad, but not Mauritius. अरे यार, Africa. Come on. Also a test of your geography. Morocco is not a bad answer, but no. Jerusalem is not Africa. Cyprus is not Africa. Tunisia, good answer. Iraq is Asia. Libya, Tunisia, Morocco. Babylon is which country? Iraq. So rule out. Come on. How many do you have left? Not bad. But don't go south. Libya ho gaya. Yes. Who said that? Yeah. Ethiopia. That Horn of Africa. You know, at that time contained Somalia, the world's most miserable country. And here is the lesson from it, and the generalization from it. Why is it that some of the most depressing, miserable countries became the richest? And why is it that the richest countries became the most miserable countries? Right? Ethiopia. How many of you are going to apply for an H-1B visa to Ethiopia? This completely useless country in the 1850s that basically produced corn, killed some cows, and traded in slaves, today is the richest country in the world. That's what the US was. 1850s, what else did the US do? Corn, beef, and slaves. Look at China. In the year 1910, when the first woman Nobel Prize winner writes her novel, goes to China and writes this fabulous novel, the next thing you should read, called The Good Earth. Does anyone know who the writer was? She moves to China and writes this absolutely stunning book which defines poverty, called The Good Earth. Pearl S. Buck. So Pearl Buck goes to China and writes this fascinating novel. Read it. You will see today's Bihar in it, or Jharkhand, or Mahbubnagar. And so she is writing about a country that a few years ago was the richest in the world. What happened? Why was India 400 years ago the richest and now miserably poor? What happens to countries? Where does wealth go? Why do you lose wealth? As with countries, so with individuals, so with families. You know, those 7th generation after Bahadur Shah Zafar cycling a rickshaw in Calcutta. The richest man in the world 100 years ago lived in the same city as you do, and his grandchildren struggling. What happens? What happens to countries? The first chap who actually looked at this issue was the first classical economist of the world, Adam Smith. Name of his book? Why did he write that? The Wealth of Nations. The full title is An Enquiry into the Wealth of Nations. Why do nations become wealthy? Why is Japan a wealthy country? Wealthy country for 200 years now. Right? Why is UK a wealthy? Why is France a wealthy country? No resources. And this strange correlation, where you have resources, you are cursed. The poorest countries in the world are the countries that have the largest resources. The richest countries of the world have no resources. Take India. The most industrialized, just give me 2 minutes. Why is, which is the most industrialized state in India today? Tamil Nadu. Any resources? Which is the most depressing state in the country today? Jharkhand, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, all the resources. So why is this the World Bank's term for it, the resource curse? You know, Malawi, Niger, Ivory Coast, Venezuela. Why are these such miserably poor countries? So that's what Adam Smith did. He said, let's look at what makes a country successful. What makes a country wealthy? And that's the question that this growth mindset also has. What makes people well off? What makes a person successful? Why does one person become successful? The neighbor is horribly miserable. And a few years later, you swap the position. One of the greatest countries in the world, Poland. You know, when Adam Smith was writing his Wealth of Nations, he was forecasting this poor, wretched Europe is now coming out of darkness with enlightenment and Renaissance. Which country is going to lead the European Renaissance? And his bets were on Poland. Yeah, he didn't talk about France, and He didn't say Italy, he didn't say Spain, he didn't say Germany. And Poland ended up the most miserable. And the United Kingdom, a little God-forsaken, poverty-stricken, terrible island with no law and order. You know, in the 17th century England, you had the invention of an English term called highway robbery, that if you went to London, you were robbed. It was that bad, and it soon becomes the world's richest. So what makes countries rich? What makes people successful? The answer to this question is the second little book that Adam Smith wrote. That's another, no, it is not Why Nations Fail. That's Asimoglu now. Adam Smith, 250 years ago. Not in The Wealth of Nations, but in this other little book. And that's the question I'm leaving you with. What makes nations successful? And therefore the answer to what makes people successful.